Sheriff Rob Maciol. All right, before we get into any of the heroin stuff, let's talk about the weather. You said something that I really take your word. When you say something,
I've never driven
you're
in.
not an over-exaggerator or exaggerator. You're.
I've never driven in a snow squall as heavy as I did just a few minutes ago. I live up in Steuben, just below Star Hill. And coming down, I mean, it was like a white sheet hanging in front of my windshield.
Wow.
You know, obviously, I know the roads a little bit, so I was kind of like feeling my way around.
Yeah.
But who's ever out, the folks that are out on the road, please slow down. Take some extra time. If you left as on your normal time, you're definitely not going to get to wherever you're going on time.
Frank,
it is treacherous.
In Lee Center, snowing like hell here in Lee Center. And we're hearing about Holland Patton and to the north in Boonville. There are some school closings and delays. Manansky, can you just give an update on what we have right now? But we've seen everything to the north.
Yes.
The goal is down here in the valley, all these schools, to get these kids in school. Once they do, they'll be okay.
Exactly.
But what could happen there, or what is happening there, could happen down here.
As soon as I got to Fox Road, just into the town of Marcy, it stopped.
Well, if you look at the radar right now, it's a gigantic dark cloud over everything north of the thruway.
Yep.
So, and again, as Rachel Witter said, the wind blows as it's supposed to. It's going to blow that front right down over top of us here in the valley. So be aware this could hit here. It is snowing right now. We're on the tail. We're just on the edge of it right now. So
our Storm Watch list, brought to you by Warner Sales and Service, your Bobcat sales and service specialist online at warnerss.com. We now have 5 closures, Bill. Adirondack, Brookfield, South Lewis, Town of Webb closed, as we've been telling you. Camden was on a delay. It is now closed.
Yeah, it's coming down. All right, Sheriff Rob Maciol, we just talked going into break about at Oneida County Jail. Was it last week? Or
I think it was December 2nd, I believe.
On December 2nd, 3 almost simultaneous overdoses inside the jail with inmates.
Yes.
How does this happen?
This is a huge struggle for us. When we look at, just to give you an example, we get visitors 5 days a week in the jail, people coming in to visit folks in the jail. We have a 632-bed jail. We do visitations during business hours on the half hour. We can take, upwards of 30 or so people at a time in a visitation room. So literally at the end of a calendar year, we're probably talking over 20,000 visitors coming into the facility to visit inmates in the jail. Looking at that, our visitation room is set up with cameras. Our visitation room is manned with multiple correction officers who view the visitation, who personally observe it. We catch a lot of contraband. There are many times when someone comes in to visit their loved one and they don't go home because they too get arrested because it gets caught. Yeah. But unfortunately, occasionally things do get by us. Now, this specific case, I can't get into too many details because it's still being investigated. Our entire facility obviously is under cameras, so we're viewing those, interviewing other people in the that were in the visitation area at that time. But in the state of New York, we are the only state left in the entire country where contact visitation is mandated. Now, when I say contact visitation, they're allowed to embrace. They're allowed to hug. They're allowed to hold hands.
When you say mandated, it's mandated to facilities.
To us. Like we have to allow contact visitation to occur. And at the departure or the end of a visit and at the beginning of a visit, we also have to allow them to kiss if they want to.
Okay.
That is where contraband is passed during the visitation period. We catch a lot of it. All right. Is there a chance that contraband can come into the facility when an inmate is booked in? It is possible, but it's very unlikely because the booking process, there's obviously an extensive search of inmates and any belongings that are coming in with them. So 9 times out of 10, contraband enters jails and prisons through visitation.
Yeah.
This is not an issue that's just a problem for Oneida County. This is not only across the state. This is across the country. But other states, they have much more stricter guidelines on visitation. And I understand that. I get it that family being able to come see inmates, being able to hold their hand or hug them or kiss them, that's a good thing for the families. It keeps them, comfortable knowing that their loved one is okay.
It also opens the door, though, for...
It does. It also, it keeps the inmate calm because, again, it keeps them somewhat happy because at the end of the day, they're still in jail. But on the flip side, that is a huge problem for security staff, contact visitation. So the sheriffs in New York, right now, we're working with the Commission of Corrections. That's the the agency that oversees the operations of all jails. They put out our standards, our staffing numbers, and things like that. So we're working with them. We're trying to, and we don't want to stop this at all. But the inmates that are with us that are either, that we know that are a problem, and if we can prove through whether it's actually seeing it or through documentation or through inmate history, we need to be able to prohibit some of these inmates to go as far as being allowed to kiss the visitors. It's a huge struggle.
So your
for
punishment
us.
might be based on behavior. You're not
going to have contact visitation.
You're not
you can
afforded
still have
this.
your visitation, but it's not going to be contact visitation.
Got it.
Because currently we can only do that under special circumstances. Because when you watch TV and you see inmates getting visited in jail and there's the glass window across and they talk on the phones, that's not in New York State. We're sitting across from each other just like we are here.
I've been there.
There's a counter, a stainless steel counter, and that's the only thing that's
so that's the same. I just thought that was what was done at the jail because I visited people at the jail before. But it's also at the prisons?
Absolutely, depending on the security level of these prisons. There are different ones. Obviously, max security is going to be totally different than a lower level security facility.
Go ahead.
Two things that came to mind. One, I don't know if this is true. I'm wondering, I'm assuming that the hypodermic instruments had to be smuggled in as well. If we're talking about heroin,
we may not be talking about hypodermic instruments, though. There are other ways to.
Right.
Again, I don't want to get into because this is an active case.
Okay.
But no, that's not the case.
Okay.
You
you do not have to inject heroin.
You do not have to
In order to.
it would just
people are desperate.
You can do whatever
they
it
get
takes.
very creative. And the way visitation works, obviously, visitors come into the facility. They're gone through metal detectors. We can clear for weapons and things like that. They wait for the inmates. The inmates are searched before they go into the visitation room. Then inmates, when the visitation period's over, they leave. They are researched again. So obviously, anything that was passed is either hidden in an inmate's mouth or wherever, or swallow it. I mean, that happens. All right, and then obviously, eventually, they will be able to get what they swallowed.
Which is dangerous in
and then
itself.
at the same time, before these inmates are brought back in, once they're searched the second time on the way out, the visitors are held in a holding area, locked in the jail, until the inmates are searched. So if we find inmate X if we find contraband on him, we're holding the visitor who came to see him or her.
Okay.
So then we go back to the camera footage. We can see the transaction. That's how people end up getting arrested, bringing contraband into the facility.
And that's how you actually are able to prevent
this particular incident on
of
December 2nd involved inmates in one specific unit in the jail, and they were all next to each other. So it's not like, you know what I mean? So obviously one inmate had the contraband and gave it to his neighbors, and that's what happened.
So,
a quick question.
So obviously the drug problem is present in the jail. Are you able to notice who may have a problem based on withdrawals? Because that's a big thing for heroin
But again,
addicts.
see, in things are so unpredictable because if someone is under the influence of heroin or has used heroin within the past 14 days that has been in the facility or 30 days, they're in a special watch unit in the jail. This issue didn't involve that. So these weren't people who were currently under surveillance or being watched for heroin use.
Okay. And this is also going back to that incredibly potent concoction.
Fentanyl. Oh, absolutely.
Fentanyl and heroin.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and again, just the danger, someone swallowing something and having it break open in their body. I mean, oh my God.
But that's
and I want to put this in
instant death.
perspective because, this is very unusual, 3 at one time. But again, 20,000 people visit in the jail a year.
Yeah.
So, one day out of 20,000 visits,
Right.
it's a horrible thing. I don't ever want it to happen again. But you know what? At the end of the day, we know it's going to happen again.
Right. Okay.
And just
it's
quickly,
the nature of the business.
you had 3 overdoses. You able to save them? Did any?
They were saved.
Yeah.
2 were briefly hospitalized. 1 did not require hospitalization. And when I came in the studio, I mentioned just a few hours ago, one of my road patrol deputies responded to a call to assist another law enforcement agency in Whitestown, person in their mid-20s, heroin overdose. My deputy, the person was out. They used Narcan and saved their life. So we saved
Just
another
happened
life
this morning.
just a few hours ago.
Wow.
So it's a huge issue in the community, and it's ripping families apart. It's ripping.
There's no boundaries. There's
it is
no
horrible.
There's
Horrible.
no profile. It could be anybody.
And
That's
we've
scary.
got to get this thing under control.
Yeah.
And when I say we, I mean everybody across this entire country.
All right, Sheriff Rob Maciol, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you coming in this morning. Quick break.